Point After Podcast with your host, Julien Barnett.
Hey guys, welcome to the Point After Podcast. I'm your host, Julien Barnett, coming to you live from the True North Podcast Network. And as always, in the Great White North, this week I got Tyler Moss on from Twitter, I guess, from
all over the place,
from several different fantasy accounts and videos and stuff. Tyler, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. It's a joy to be here. Yes. Tyler from many platforms. We'll start with that. I guess the best way to find out what I'm doing, what I'm up to, is by checking out my Twitter, Tyler Moss NFL. Most of my updates, what I'm doing, everything comes through that. This is, and we talked about it before, Julien, this is my 12th podcast I've featured on. I've been in the industry for a year and I think 5 days. Honestly, I think that's around January 20th was my first video. I've done about 200 plus videos in my short career. I'm hoping to make it a long career though, and really excited to jump on with Point After here today.
Well, we are excited to have you, man. And that's quite a remark to be able to say that you've done 200 videos in 370 days is pretty impressive, man. So I am pumped to have you on. I also got to touch on it because we talked about this before. You're wearing sunglasses. You've never shown your eyes. What's that about?
I don't know. I somehow, when I was looking back in my archives, realized that I had never done it. I'd never shown the eyes. That was around April. Around March when I started with Fantasy Stock Exchange Company, I still am in close ties with. And I realized, you know what? I think this is a shtick. I think I can work with it. And I've had a lot of people engage with me because of it. So I guess it's been working. We're rolling. I think I look great in sunglasses. I kind of give off this persona, this guy that wears sunglasses indoors. Why should I listen to him? And I got to prove a point every time I jump on a podcast. So that's what I'm here to do.
There you go, man. Well, let's tell people why we're here. So we're starting a segment together. We're going to do, it'll be you and me as well as Danny Football 59. The three of us are going to break down, basically the top 6 to top 12, depending on the position, players coming into the 2021 season. And you specifically have done a bunch of draft research. You've put together a bunch of, almost 12 to 15 different draft breakdown scouting videos. So, and I thought, who better to bring in to help me tackle this and take this on. So I am super pumped for it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, that's something you as the audience can find on my Twitter, Tyler Moss NFL. I have a few threads that I put together. I watch film every day. I think it's good for you. It's like eating your Wheaties in the morning. You got to eat your film breakdowns in the afternoon. What keeps me going? I'm putting together a draft guide, very, very large draft guide that's including rookie profiles. So I have to be grinding film all day long. I'm doing it so the audience does not have to. We're going to have dynasty strategy articles, Debbie strategy, everything you're going to want for your upcoming season, as far as Dynasty and Debbie and all that, is going to be in this guide. So this is a very exciting project we're putting together. And yes, a lot of film breakdown will be in this guide. And I think it's something you're going to want to look forward to checking out. So that's why that explains my film on my Twitter.
Well, I'm excited to check it out myself. I do a lot of, I agree. I watch a lot of film myself. And I love getting in the film room and just, seeing what I know, right? That's really what it comes down to me. I don't think I'm an expert by any means. But I played football for a good portion of my life and I know, at least I played Canadian football, which is a little different than American football.
20 yards longer, right? 120?
Well, it's 110 total, but we get 10 yards wider on the sides too. So technically 120 yards total.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. Yeah, no, but I've loved football my whole life and getting into the film room even just recently and like breaking down some of these rookies, it just brings you back, brings you back to those playing days and like it just gets me hyped up. I'm just so excited about it. and it feels like a not a chore. I'm thinking of the other word of a chore. What's that?
Oh, geez, a pleasure, a joy, sure.
There you go. I'm having fun when I'm doing it.
We look for it.
There we go. So let's get into our first one, man. But everybody knows who the 101. Already in the NFL draft is going to be the consensus 101 in Superflex leagues. Tell me your favorite thing about Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. So when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, it's just, everything you look for in a quarterback, everything you looked for 20 years ago and everything you look for now, he somehow checks off both those boxes. You want a quarterback with a big arm. You want a quarterback that can sit in the pocket and make plays for you. You're kind of an older kind of football mind. That's what you want from your quarterback. Great. He can provide that. You want a guy that can get out of the pocket and make plays just as well as he can get and make plays while he's in the pocket. Great. He can do that too. I think that versatility for him is just so exciting. When it comes to tearing these guys off, I think it was very, very easy for me from the start to put Trevor Lawrence, tear it off, and then let's get to the next guys. He's my clear one. He's going to go to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville's going to enjoy it. And as a Dolphin fan, you can kind of see the flag in the background. I'm thrilled that the Jets do not know how to tank properly because Trevor Lawrence will not be in their laps. I think it's an easy 101 pick in your rookie drafts when it comes to Superflex. And it's an easy 101 pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You should be very excited about this guy.
Yeah, man, I love the way you put that. And I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan myself. This guy's been winning since high school. He comes in and he's been a winner all 3 years in his university career at Clemson. So, great vision. I love what he's able to do with the ball in his hands when he's actually looking downfield, but also when he's moving around. And he's just the type of player that he doesn't need to run, but it's something that it's in his arsenal that he's just able to do. And when we talk about fantasy players, like that's just the ultimate cheat code for a quarterback is somebody who's able to do that. And, we look at examples like that, like you could Pat Mahomes this year. I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence is the next Pat Mahomes. Maybe he is, but like Mahomes has really taken that step in his game where we never really saw that in his first, in his first full year as a quarterback. And now he's really started to up his game in the running factor. He threw for 50 touchdowns in his second year. He didn't need to be running the ball anymore. But once defenses are starting to step back, then we've seen what Pat Mahomes can do with his legs, and like that's just it's ultimately like. For me, it's a huge factor to making an elite quarterback. Like if you can't move, it's really difficult in today's NFL to be able to be an elite quarterback.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's when you look at these top 6 guys, there's a reason I think most people have the top 4 kind of tiered off on their loans themselves. And then the bottom 2 we'll get to later, kind of a little bit lower on the list. The mobility factor is so big in today's NFL. And I'm not saying quarterbacks can't get away with it. We see our dinosaurs of the NFL right now doing incredible things. If you look at the NFC championship game that had just passed, you'll see 2 dinosaurs who do not move out of the pocket well at all, both carving it up and both taking down mobile guys on their journey to the NFC championship. So it's not impossible, but you got to have really, really good traits and a lot of development for you to be successful in the non-mobile game. It definitely gives you a leg up, and it makes you good from the start. I know that sounds kind of weird, but if you can run, you're making plays, you're extending drives, that's something that you learn as a pocket quarterback the more you develop in your career. And if you can already start with that heads up, I think that's really, really important. You see why these mobile quarterbacks are so highly looked at. Trevor Lawrence being the best of both worlds is why he's the 101 in most people's mind.
Yeah, and it's not even close for me. Like you said, there's a huge teardrop there in terms of just what he can offer you for fantasy, but also as a real life quarterback. Like he's a smart quarterback. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes good decisions. Like I did a little 2-minute film breakdown of him, and he has a 2-yard out route, and instead he takes a 15-yard out route on the sidelines across his body. Like it's just, that's the type of quarterback that Trevor Lawrence is, because he can make that type of play. And I just think he's phenomenal. So I'm super pumped for him. Unfortunately, I suck at tanking and don't have any 101s. So if I want to get a piece, I got to spend up and
correct.
And yeah. So we'll see how that goes, but let's jump into what kind of seems to be the consensus 102, but like for me, and I think for you, we're kind of off of him a little bit, but Justin Fields from Ohio State. Tell me about him.
Yeah, so if you wanted to find someone to jump on your podcast that hates Fields the most, you found him. He is my quarterback 4 of the class. I own up to that, and I man up to it every single time I get asked about it. So I've got a few issues with Fields. Of course, we talked about no flaws with Trevor Lawrence. There's a few, but I'm going to have no problem talking about the flaws with Justin Fields here. So he's very, very, very good at being accurate on throws. He's very, very good at mobility. It's just, I think he puts a little too much weight into it. It's just, There's a problem with me when I watch Justin Fields that it's the first read or nothing. He's either gonna hawk down his first read, which in the NFL will kill you. The safeties will capitalize off of that all day, and you see when he struggles, that's the biggest issue that there is. And then when he's not hawking down one target and guys are getting covered up, he's running. There's no secondary looks where you see with Trevor Lawrence, and you even talked about it. You talked about it, and I didn't even have to. Trevor Lawrence's ability to accept one option and accept the other option too. If there's a bigger play developing, he can go to that option and it's no worries. It's almost like it's just a switch in his mind. He's like, okay, cool, throwing deeper. You got a few reads, that's fine. It feels like Justin Fields. I feel like, I don't think it's limiting at Ohio State, but it felt like, okay, let's give Chris Olave one route, Fields hawk it or run. And if that's your progressions as a quarterback in the NFL, you're going to struggle. The NFL safeties, NFL corners, they're built different. They're going to watch the eyes. It's the safeties especially. It's the safeties that really matter. The safety difference between Big Ten safeties at Northwestern and Indiana over Kansas City and all these your Tyrann Mathieu types where they're going to watch you and watch your eyes and dissect you. And all you are going to have to be able to do is run. All they're going to do is put a linebacker to shadow you, and it's over. So that's my issue with Fields. I want to see him make more reads than just, hey, is my first option open? Nope, let's run. And I need that development as a quarterback. I didn't really see that in his few years at Ohio State.
I mean, you kind of touched on all of the things that bug me. It's the first read, which is really what bothers me. And it's not just, only going to that first read, but he'll try and force it into there. If he sees man coverage and he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just throw it up. Like, I don't really think that that's the best way to translate into the NFL. You can't just throw the ball up to your best player in man coverage because you got man coverage and expect that they're going to come down with it. But it's kind of seemed that way, watching film. That's what I saw. Also, a lot of like screen yards and short passes that sometimes are dropped. But the biggest thing is, like, people will talk about the yardage that he had on the season, and when I watch this film, a lot of it's yak. Like, so much of his production is yak, and it that just kind of bothers me. And so what I think about Fields for fantasy is he can be fantasy relevant because of his legs, but I don't want to invest. I don't want to buy in, because what I see is a quarterback who, despite what you had said earlier, I thought that he actually missed quite a few throws. And one of the biggest things that I was talking to, but one of my guys in the True North crew earlier this morning, was he underthrows deep balls. And on the stat sheet, these look great. He got a 60-yard touchdown, woohoo! But you see the receiver having to come back towards the ball, or like I remember, I can't remember what game it was. He throws the ball into the end zone. He's got a wide open receiver who went uncovered, and he underthrew him, and like it was almost incomplete, and I'm like, you have a wide open receiver downfield. It looks like a 60-yard touchdown on the stat sheet. And when you actually watch the film, you see that this is an underthrown football, and in the NFL that probably gets picked up. So
yeah, I mean, Ohio State, it's the same with Alabama. It's the same with, I guess,
Florida.
Too. You have Florida, you're LSU. You're going to have guys on your team that are going to make plays. And that's the thing. It's the same issue with you kind of look back at some Tua stuff and you're like, okay, well, what if we pulled him out of that Alabama system? That was my biggest complaint of him last year. What is he going to do without all these guys? You go to Miami, there's no wide receivers at all. In fact, please draft some. But it's the same issue with Fields. While I don't think Olave is fantastic, like he's pushing top 10 for me until, he went back. Him going back, he'll probably be a top 5 guy next year. But this is the talent you get. You get your Ruckers, the guys that are going to go make plays for you and make a difference. So you kind of get hidden. A lot of the bad traits kind of get hidden because of that. And I will say this for Fields because I can't argue this. I think he's the best mobile guy in the class. But that's stoppable. He's not Lamar when it comes to mobility.
So exactly. I was just gonna say. It is stoppable. Yeah.
Sorry, girl. Go about that.
No. It's just it is stoppable, and it's not something that like you can scramble in the NFL, but it'll only work for so long.
Yeah.
They're gonna put a spy out there. They're gonna there's athletes on defense too, and so they're gonna be able to stop a guy whose biggest trait is running the football, right? Like we've seen it with Lamar, who's an elite runner, worlds ahead better than Fields, and it's still being stopped by it's still stoppable, right? So where's your ideal landing spot for Justin Fields?
Oh gosh, that's the thing. That's the thing with these quarterbacks is like with running backs and wide receivers, a little more opinionated, but with the quarterbacks is like, okay, it's got to be someone in the top 5. I think the NFL, just off the Clemson game alone, is just going to say, okay, he's going to be the number 2 or 3. Whether your team's in a more comfortable position or not, do the Jets go quarterback? I think we have to give that maybe a couple months because I don't know if they're even going to have that pick. A team like San Fran trades up, maybe they go with him. I don't think he goes to Miami. I don't think Miami goes with a quarterback. The Bengals aren't going to do it. There's a few teams sprinkled in there that may do it. I guess if I wanted him to go to a team that was going to be good for him, you kind of have to look at, do they have good wide receivers? Do they have and this is going to sound dumb because it's not even going to happen, but the Saints would be beautiful. Gosh, if you go to the Saints and you give them Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and Jared Cook, I still think is a pretty good tight end, even though he's kind of older. You give him that kind of system where, the offensive playbook could just be changed on a whim because Sean Payton's that good. Teams like that, if he goes to Detroit, game over. He's going to have a career that falls off a cliff. You could think, I think. Yeah, yes, potentially, yeah. Washington could be a good option. Rivera's dealt with mobile quarterbacks. But
I mean, Cam Newton, right? When he was kind of in his prime.
And I mean, Terry McLaurin and Michael Thomas pretty close to me. And then, Logan Thomas kind of broke out and Antonio Gibson looks really, really good. So I guess a system where he is going to be completely supported and will not have to be the lead dog. He kind of gives me Baker vibes, except with more mobility. And I think that's just an issue with Fields. But I guess the one thing that I kind of caught was like, why are we so high on this guy? Is if you can barely throw 100 yards against Northwestern, you're not really a top 2 quarterback in my eyes. But, Justin Fields, everyone. Some people are high on him. Please go watch him, please.
Man, I agree. I mean, go watch the film. You'll see it. Go like we said, watch for the underthrows. Watch him literally watch one guy and just force the ball to him, right? Or run, and you'll get some perspective. But, for me, like the spot that I really like, you mentioned it, but it's San Francisco. I think, they could almost reinvent that Kaepernick offense they had a few years ago. And I think Shanahan would be able to be really creative with him. They wouldn't need him to do a whole lot. All they ask really of their quarterback is, some slants, toss the ball to George Kittle, get the ball out to the flats, to the running backs. They got a great offensive line, so they're going to take care of them. Like, I think it could be a nice fit, but like you said, I don't think he goes that late in the NFL draft. He's probably a top 5 pick.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to trade up if you want him there. I mean, in all honesty. So that's kind of the Justin Fields MO, I would say. Just not an attractive guy to me. He just isn't. I can't really get around the fact that for people, he's a top 2 quarterback. He just isn't. I'd much rather take the risk on one of these big arm, fun kind of quarterbacks that come in at 3 and 4 on our list here.
Well, let's get into them, man. So we'll start with the BYU product, Zach Wilson. I know you're real high on him. So tell me about it. What do you like the most about Zach Wilson? What stands out to you?
Yeah, so it's not something I should probably like, but I somehow just find a way to love it. This guy, man, he'll do anything to make a play, and it's risky. He's the kind of guy where if he goes to a coach that's like, okay, breathe. okay, we're going to make smart decisions here. You can have fun, but let's make smart decisions. Like
he can't go to San Francisco.
Yeah, a Ron Rivera situation. Just a coach that's just like, okay, you have a lot of traits, a lot of attractive traits, but let's just temper you down a little bit. He's got mobility, which is great. You look for that. He's got right up there with Mac Jones, probably one of the best arms in the class. He's got really fantastic accuracy, which I think for these kind of wild card guys, we've seen it in the past, these wild card quarterbacks who come in here and just want to sling the rock all over the place, but they don't have the accuracy for it. I think that helps Wilson so much is while he does have this sling it around kind of mentality, he has fantastic accuracy. So it kind of works for him. Because again, we've seen it fail so many times in the NFL where guys just want to chuck the ball everywhere and they don't have the accuracy for it. So that helps him. I just think in a few years, we're just going to see this guy as just the better overall quarterback than Fields. Sure, Fields can run a little bit better than Wilson, no doubt. But I mean, this kid, he can put in a ball in any place. I dropped a PFF stat. Highest single season tight window passing grade since 2018. And the kid was number 1. And it wasn't even like close. Like he had a 92.7 score on that. The next closest was Joe Burrow's 2019 season, which we all loved, at 81.7. It was over it was an 11-point split. Like that's wild. Like it's just
and that speaks directly to his accuracy as well. That's not a receiver stat. It's not a team stat. That just is specifically about how he's approaching playing the game of football. But really what I love about him and what like his coaches say, and even the announcers when you watch the games and whatnot, is just how smart he is and like really dedicated to the craft of football. And that to me really stands out because players who understand the game at a higher level, like way higher than you and I will ever understand. Like when they understand a game at that point, that's how you get to like Mahomes levels, because he's thinking like four steps ahead. And like when you really like start to break that down and understand that size of that way of play style, you become a great quarterback. That's how all of the great quarterbacks have become great. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, all of these guys were great because they were mentally in the game all the time. They were picking apart defenses. Like that's what I love about Zach Wilson is he's smart. He can throw the ball and he can pinpoint accurate, like have great accuracy. And he's pretty mobile, right? But ultimately, like what I really love is just his ability. He doesn't turn the ball over and he makes good plays. He makes smart decisions, even though they're risky. Like, don't get me wrong. I've seen the shovel passes. I've seen the flicks, right? But we see that in the NFL happen. We see Pat Mahomes do that, right? Yeah. And at that level, because it's Pat Mahomes, they're like, you have the IQ to be able to pull this play off. And I'm by no means saying that that Zach Wilson is going to be, Patrick Mahomes in 3 years' time, but that's a trait that I really like in a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely some development that comes with him. I think more for the next guy, a lot more. But I still believe if he goes to a system where he can sit and just
1 year, I just think he needs 1 year. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think he can play 3 weeks into the season. I just don't think he should. I think give him the time. I think if you want to talk perfect landing spots for him, go to Atlanta, please. Matt Ryan, people bust on him a lot, but man, when it comes to throwing the ball, he does a fantastic job at it. And you want to go ahead and give a quarterback Calvin Ridley and Julio, and I'm going to say it, Russell Gage kind of looked pretty good this year, and I think he's going to keep looking better, along with your Hayden Hurst. I mean, that's not a bad situation to go in as a quarterback. And sure, they need a running game.
They'll address that.
That fell off. But, I mean, you give this team this high-end pick this year. You give them probably another high-end pick the next year, and that's 2 high-end pick draft classes that you're going to load up and take Zach Wilson this year. Only thing I recommend, don't Tua him. Please do not. Don't start him and then pull him halfway through games. Just if you're going to do it, let it ride.
I don't know why they did that, man. That's so demoralizing on a rookie quarterback.
It hurts. It hurts.
Man. Yeah, that sucks. But yeah, like the big things I really noticed about Trey Lance, big arm, big QB, and surprisingly fast for somebody who's so big.
Yeah.
But that's really where he was able to do a lot of his damage was, the zone RPO game, the zone read game, and just pulling it, tucking it, running. I watched multiple touchdowns where he goes straight up the gut. Those RPOs, they don't work like that in the NFL.
No.
But in college, I mean, that's a skill of his, and they will be able to use that to a certain degree in the NFL. So I agree. I think he probably needs like a year or two to sit, let him learn what the NFL is actually like. It's not an easy game. Like outside of the tight end position, the quarterback position is like it's the hardest position that translates from college to NFL if you're behind. And like he goes to a lower tier school, not playing against a bunch of really great competition. And then when you get into the NFL, like what's going to happen when you, like you said, you start playing against the Tyrann Matthews? Like that's not going to be great to throw him into that situation.
Yeah. That's the issue with Lance is, gosh, underdeveloped, hard underdeveloped. And I think part of that is an offensive scheme where, yes, they ran very efficiently. The running backs and Lance, very, very good. But in his full 2019 slate, he averaged 18 passing attempts a game. And in the championship game versus Eastern Washington, he had 10 passes. He threw the ball 10 times. Like, I can't say that he won't be able to adjust to a 25 to 35 passes a game in the NFL, which is kind of what it is right now. But I can say that 18, you're not going to be there too often unless you're absolutely dogging a team, which I doubt he goes to a team where that's going to be a situation for him. And that's just rough. I mean, there's just not much to look at. And that's the issue. It's why we love Lawrence so much. And if you don't have a lot to look at, a big profile, and I talk about it with running backs all the time, it's the same issue with pass blocking. Okay, if you're a running back and you don't pass block, I'm going to assume the coaches know you can't do it. So if you're a quarterback and you're not throwing the ball heavily, I'm assuming that if you start doing it, you're turning over the ball a lot. And we talk about the security for him, how he didn't throw an interception all of his 2019 campaign. He threw 28 touchdowns. If you're averaging 18 passes a game, I really do hope you keep it safe when you're throwing the ball because the running game is probably biting it. And then you're playing against D2 guys. So we talk about Justin Fields and how he's benefited by these high prospects, high 5-star, 4-star guys on his team, and then playing against 3-star Northwestern kids. How about playing against 1-star kids over in D2? I mean, like, how much weight can we really put into his competition? You kind of just have to look at his skills and cross your fingers. When you look at a guy like this, overall, though, I have to put him at 3. Him and Fields have been so close to me on who I want above the other. In all honesty, I've even been considering it during this show. I may split tier Zach Wilson off. I may make it Trevor Lawrence in his own tier, Zach Wilson in his own tier, and then the rest of the 4 together. Because honestly, I see Zach Wilson as a complete product who probably just needs a light bit of seasoning. And then I see Lance and Fields as guys that need some development and a good bit of it to be successful in the NFL. I don't think Lance makes it on a bad team. If he goes to a bad team, you might as well throw his career away because it's just not going to work. He can't start immediately. I would struggle to say he should start at all in the first season, even if the team's terrible and you're like, I just want to see what he looks like. I think it's going to be bad. But I think the kid needs a lot of development. Do I think he's going to be good? Sure. In the right circumstance, with the right targets, with some time, yeah, absolutely. He goes to Atlanta and he gets a whole year. He's probably going to be great in 2022. But I can't see it. I can't see him being good first year at all. Yeah,
well, what I thought was kind of cool was my comp for him was actually Ryan Tannehill, and I think that's huge in part to the offense is that they're both part of. Right, because they're very similar players, right? Like he can drive the ball downfield, but a lot of it is a product of play action. So to me, like you said, he can't go into a system where he has to throw the ball 25, 30 times a game. It's going to be brutal. Like he needs, it seems like he needs his receivers to be able to create some space, right? He's really good at throwing them open, but throwing into tight windows and stuff like that, like they relied on their run game. So I'm a little bit skeptical of him as a starter, like you said. I hope that he's able to come in and get drafted by a team that has him sit on the bench. I also I don't think any NFL team is drafting Trey Lance and being like, this is our franchise quarterback. Like we're sticking our guns to this guy. Like he's probably going to be drafted as a backup.
Yeah, and I think that's to the benefit of him. I think him along with the next two guys, and if they're starting immediately, their career is not going to be taking a good turn. And we can dive into the next guy if you'd like.
Yeah, let's get in there.
Mac Jones. What a fun guy. So him and I definitely jumped Trask. Well, whatever. Him and Trask.
We'll go back.
Yeah, we'll go back. Sure. Him and Trask for me are about the same
tier.
Easy. Flip flop in my rankings all the time. I think I have Trask above Jones right now. When it comes to Mac Jones, great arm talent, great deep ball touch. You watch this guy, and yes, you got to play this game now. How much was Waddle, Devontae Smith, Judy when last year, and Ruggs when Mac took over? How much role did these guys play in making him look good? We talk about it all the time with Tua. That's a big beneficiary of them as prospects, is getting guys like that.
Well, he threw for 4,500 yards this year, and you look at that, you go, "Holy shit, that's a lot of yards, man!" But excuse me, I talked about it earlier with Fields. Like a lot of their passes are screens, tunnel screens, bubble screens. You got your tight ends dropping out, your halfbacks dropping out, and all I see is just yak. Like I like Mac Jones. Don't get me wrong. I think he's an accurate passer. I don't think he's a great passer, but he can push the ball downfield. He can hit the routes that are open. He's like, to me, he's the epitome of like a serviceable quarterback. Like he could go in and just like he can do what you need, but he's not going to win you a game. And that's just kind of how I see it. I comped him to Matt Ryan, actually. In terms of their play style and like what they do, like. He's very immobile, loves to throw the ball downfield, but and is pretty smart quarterback. But also like Matt Ryan, has always had elite weapons to help him out.
Yeah, definitely didn't hurt Matt Ryan. But hell, you give any of these quarterback prospects a situation like Matt Ryan's had most of his career, outside the defensive issues and occasionally some line issues, as we've seen a few years ago. They're starting to tighten it up a little bit more this year. You give them that kind of situation, they're going to do well. Even a guy like a Mac Jones type who brings you back to the quarterback you wanted a few years ago. Not a few years ago, like the
20 years ago.
We'll say. But Mac Jones he's got a lot of accolades in this 1 year. And obviously when you have the Heisman wide receiver, which is the rarest thing we'll say in this show, it's going to help you. And then when the other wide receiver that you had that obviously went down is he's easily a top 3 wide receiver for most people. It's definitely going to help your stats. It's definitely going to make you look better. But Mac Jones does some remarkable things himself. Obviously his pocket presence and ability to deliver the ball in the pocket is really, really high end. His red zone percentage it was rated the highest in 2020. His quarterback rating for it 134.6. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I remember it's like 152.9 is the perfect quarterback score. I'm pretty sure. So I think that's right. Yeah. So that's madness. I'm really familiar with WAR, wins above replacement, because I do a lot of baseball stuff. But PFF's version of that is wins above average. So basically, over the median quarterback in college football, how do they place? And Mac Jones was number 1 on the list. Number 2, Kyle Trask. Number 3, Zach Wilson. So 3 guys we're going to talk about or have talked about. If you're doing better than the average quarterback, I can say you're doing pretty well. And if you're number 1 on the list, that's really valuable as well. And overall, getting the ball in the end zone is your number 1 goal, right? So being the highest rated red zone passer definitely helps. I think there's a lot of favorable things when it comes to Mac Jones. Just the mobility pushes him down the list, and he did it with proven talent. Can he do it with not proven talent? So just a few question marks with him. But I feel he's relatively close to where he's going to be for the rest of his career. And I think that's a promising thing. That's a safer investment than going with a Lance who could be way better, but you don't know. With Mac Jones, you feel like this is what it's going to be for the rest of his future, maybe with a little bit more growing. And honestly, you're comfortable with that. The Matthew Stafford of the league. If you put a good team around him,
Bridgewater.
Yeah, he's going to be good. Just put a good team around him, and Mac Jones will be all right. And I think luckily for him, he'll fall to the later first round and get a situation like that. And I hope that for Mac Jones, because that'll make him a great prospect in the future. So we hope for that. Hope for Mac Jones in a good situation.
I have to agree, my friend. I have to agree. All right, man. Well, I guess that topples kind of the top six.
Oh
yeah, yes we did. Yeah, I'm looking at my show sheet here. All right, so let's dive into Kyle Trask here for a second.
All right. Yeah. So if you don't know me, all my bias in my Twitter, I probably should not be writing him up for a draft guide, but I'm going to, and it's going to be unbiased. Don't worry about it. Just another cheap shout out there. So Kyle Trask, he's it's just you got to watch him to really kind of see him as a quarterback, him as a prospect. You look at the stat sheet, you're really gonna kind of I don't know if you'd assume he'd be median kind of quarterback, but you just watch him in a game. He's got great game. He's just a big game player. You watch him in the Alabama game, he stepped up. The Georgia game, he stepped up. Last year versus LSU, he stepped up. In big game situations, this guy just comes to play. He doesn't have an elite arm talent. Obviously, like Alabama, Florida gets some really, really good wide receivers. They have, 3, 4 on active NFL rosters from last year's draft. Yeah. Freddie Swain, who caught a touchdown for Seattle in the playoffs this year. Van Jefferson, who's still developing with the Rams. Tyree Cleveland, who had a breakout Week 17 game for the Broncos. I genuinely think he could be their wide receiver 4 or 3 on that team. And that was the guy they drafted in the 6th round. And then give him Pitts and Tony and Trevon Grimes this year. All guys who I think are going to be drafted and be in the same situation as the guys this year, except honestly better because Pitts and Tony both could be first-round guys. Yes, Trask was handed a good situation, and he's handed guys that made plays. But that's also part of the Dan Mullen system. Get the ball to the playmakers, let them do the work. I think Kyle Trask is a little bit kind of crapped on, I guess, in the Twitter world. For how good he kind of is. I think he's a good second-round quarterback that can develop really well in a great system.
Yeah, man, it kind of reminds me of Big Ben, actually. He's a guy who, for me, is able to step up in the pocket, and he can be a game manager. But like you said, they didn't ask him to do a whole lot. Get the ball to your playmakers. I saw a lot of balls get thrown up to Kyle Pitts. Let him go get it. Right? I'm not a huge fan of that when I see it in college because we talked about this earlier. It's that's just a quarterback going to their playmaker and letting them go do that. You're not going to have that kind of opportunity in the NFL. So I'm actually a bit out on Trask myself, but I'm not throwing him to the wolves per se, like some people are. I think this is another guy who's going to go to a team that he's able to develop for a while. I don't think he's going into a position where he's looked at to start in the next year, even 2 years. Depending on an injury or anything, something like that. But
completely get it. I would love a Jordan Love situation. Yeah, where he just goes behind a great quarterback and sits. I see no issue with that. I think that would honestly benefit his career. And this guy, let's also look at the fact that, and when we talk about Mac Jones, we talk about Justin Fields and others, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, not really, but Trevor Lawrence. These guys all have one thing in common, and that's a great running game. The best running back that came out of Florida while Kyle Trask was under center, Michael Pirine. I like the guy; he's great, but he's like the third string for the Jets until Lev Bell left, and then he was the second string. It's just uncomfortable. It's just not really all great. So he's never been with a good running game. He's always kind of had that pressure, and you know what? He performed pretty well with it. And yes, he does go to his playmakers, and he's probably going to need weapons for him to be successful. But I don't really see that as an issue getting to, because when we talk about these higher end guys, yes, Justin Fields and yes, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, they're going to go early in drafts, and teams are going to put a lot of capital in them. They're going to go to bad teams, though. I think Trask gets in a situation where maybe he goes to
Pittsburgh
type, or he's going to sit the whole first year, and it's fine, it's whatever. But man, he's got a good offense, and man, oh no, he actually has weapons and playmakers, and they kind of have their version of Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney on the Steelers. You give him 3 wide receivers, Deontay, Washington at some points, and Juju. Even keep Ebron around if you really want to. I mean, you tell me Trask can't work with that? I think he can. New Orleans, you give him Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. I think you can work with that. That's the thing. That's the advantage of being kind of the lower end quarterbacks in this class. Obviously, there's a top 6, and then there's just a mess after that.
I don't even want to get into that.
Ellen Bond, all right. Desmond Ritter went back. Jamie Newman, all right. But you give Trask this over all the other prospects. He gets to go the latest, and he's probably going to land in a gold situation. Him and Mac Jones. That's what makes them still favorable quarterbacks in this class. Outside the traits, which they do have, they are good quarterbacks. They're SEC quarterbacks. You're competing against NFL guys every single game, especially in the 11-game season they had to face this year.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. And I think it's funny because those are the 2 ideal landing spots I have down for Trask is New Orleans and Pittsburgh. So I'm happy you hit that. All right, are we content? Are we good? We hit them all now.
Oh, you don't want to talk? Shane Buechel from SMU, or you want to talk Felipe Franks? Oh yeah, no, not at all. Me neither. All right, great.
Sorry, guys. If you want to hear about that, go check out Tyler Moss NFL on Twitter.
Don't put that on me.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on with me here today. It's been a blast. I'm looking forward to the running back one we got coming up in 2 weeks, and then next week I got Danny on as well to break down the wide receivers. So should be a lot of fun, man. And then we're all going to come together and do a mock draft at the end of it all.
Very exciting. Yes. I look forward to it. And yeah, me and Danny working hard on this draft guide. We think there may be a chance we get Julien here on board with it. Maybe talk about it a little bit on our show. See if see what we can do to get it out there, get it to the people. We got a lot of things cooking with it. Player cards. We got rankings, both rookie rankings and full dynasty rankings. If you're a dynasty player, this is going to be a great stop for you. Plus, I may be doing a jersey giveaway for it, a jersey of your choice too. I know, big stuff here, big stuff. So you're going to want to check it out. We think it's a very good product, and we think you're going to enjoy it. So, yep, that is all for me. Tyler Moss NFL on Twitter too. My last plug.
All right, and just quickly, right before we leave, guys, because I forgot to say this earlier. Viridian Global, go check them out. It's where I got my sweater. It's got all of our True North merch on it, as well as all of our Point After stuff, and a bunch of other fantasy football affiliates. You can go on there and pretty much search any player's name, and you'll find a sweater or a shirt that has a picture of them or something on it. So go check it out. It's right down on the bottom there, www.viridianglobal.com. And yeah, thanks for joining us. See you later, guys.